Um, I'm going to begin this morning with a poem from a book called, my reading this morning is a poem called Begin Again. And Story, whenever you talk, you're saying all the points in my sermon quite often, but and other times it's so funny because I know Story is an inspired speaker. And so she's receiving what she's going to speak about as she goes along quite often. And so you'll find a lot of parallels between what she said and what is in my sermon. So it's kind of fun. So the poem is called Begin Again. It's by Colin McCarty, and it's from the book Creeds to Live By, Dreams to Follow. One of the best things we can do in our lives is this: begin again. Begin to see yourself as you were when you were the happiest and strongest you've ever been. Begin to remember what worked for you and what worked against you. And try to capture the magic again. Begin to remember how natural it was when you were a child to live a lifetime each day. Begin to forget the baggage you have carried with you for years. The problems that don't matter anymore, the tears that cried themselves away, and the worries that are going to wash away on the shore of tomorrow's new beginning. Tomorrow tells us it will be here every new day of our lives. And if we will be wise, we will turn away from the problems of the past and give the future and ourselves a chance to become the best of friends. Sometimes all it takes is a wish in the heart to let yourself begin again. Again, that was a poem by Colin McCarty. Good morning. We have just entered into the time of Beltane, or May Day, a pagan holiday with Gaelic roots, which celebrates the awakening of the earth. The name Beltane is probably, it means loosely, bright fire, possibly referring to the Celtic god of the sun, Belenus. And during this time of late spring and the early summer season, the fertile ground is endowed with the strongest energies of conception of the whole year. And not only is the earth more fertile, but the people too. It was known as a magical time to tie the knot, a phrase which I'm sure you know comes from the custom of tying hands during a hand fasting or marriage ceremony. It was believed that this was a very lucky time to conceive a child. And during Beltane, couples who wanted to pledge their love to one another would jump over the ceremonial bonfire together. And indeed, the bonfire was so significant that all of the villagers would douse the fire in their own home, which had been burning all year long, and restart it with embers from the bonfire to bring that magical and spiritual protection into their own homes and bless their house for the year. The cattle would be sent out to pasture during this time and sent right through the smoke of the fire to assure protection and a good growing season. Maidens would wash their face with first dew because it was said to improve your complexion. And then off to merrymaking and staying out in the woods all night, which resulted in a lot of new babies 9 months later. So what does Beltane mean to us? What can we learn from Beltane? Has anyone been raking out your gardens of all the dead stuff from last year's gardens? I know I have. And we're eagerly observing the new life springing up from the earth, waking from its long winter sleep. All the flowers and trees are being born again, producing new leaves, fruits, and blossoms. How can we harness this fertile energy of Beltane, all that creativity and newness. And much like Mother Earth, we have been sheltering for quite some time, abiding by restrictions that have been placed on us for our safety due to this worldwide pandemic. So perhaps we can also be rebirthed, our souls awakened, just like the earth at the end of a long, hard winter. Is there some old dead stuff you'd like to leave behind you as you step into these rejuvenating energies, allowing some new qualities and new ideas to grow? If you're like me, you have some kind of unpleasant associations with the term born again, which has a specific meaning for some religious denominations. People who firmly believe that there is only one way to reach that state of divine union, body, mind, and soul. And unless you do it their way, you are not and will never be saved and will not be able to achieve that everlasting life in heaven. And let me be clear, I am not talking about that kind of born again. I'm probably not the only one who's been pinned into a corner with that conversation about born again. And that's the kind of dogma that causes many people to part ways with the traditional religion that they were brought up with, and causes many families to split up. I belong to a book group, a wonderful group of wise women, and we've all been meeting for years now to study the works of Paul Selig, a medium and author, and one of the world's foremost channelers of our time. In his latest book, The Book of Alchemy, he channels a piece about being born again and enlightens us with a new way of thinking about rebirth. And there's a phrase that he commonly uses that I'm going to explain a little bit for you, the upper room. And the upper room is actually referring to kind of an energetic field where our vibration is the very highest that we can maintain, that humans can align to, that we can maintain while we're still in our human form in our body. So it's kind of that highest vibration, you might like to say. And we, from that place, we can experience normal events and be in the upper room at the same time. But things like human fear and deception cannot exist when you are in that upper room. And I equate it to, when we say, let's take a look at the higher self point of view. Let's be up out of worry, up out of fear, up out of ego, kind of the small self. We're going up to the higher self. So here's the quote. The idea of being born again, which some believe in, is in fact an artifact of baptism and the belief that one is reborn through an encounter with spirit. And while that is true, it is actually done in the energetic field, not through someone else's intention for you or your desire to release some idea of sin, but instead in agreement to the aspect that expresses as you already in the upper room. Understand this, friends. An aspect of you is already present in the upper room, and that is who you are received by and agreed to as the divine self. Reunification, resurrection, re-identification are all ways of saying the same thing. You have reknown yourself in union with the source of all things while maintaining form. And understand form, in other words, our physical body, in its maintained state is not separate from its source, but also in agreement to it. But the challenging part of this concept is the belief that the bodies are simply vehicles for the soul, and in fact not partaking in their own expression of its divinity. If you deny the body as of God, you have denied the articulation of the divine in everything that you see. And this is separation. Refinement of identity, in some ways, is the simple agreement that even the I that believes herself as separate is of God, and that is what assumes it. The I is not God, the small self is not deified, but even that I is still an aspect of the Creator in its unique expression. And the quote just continues, take a moment now and make a choice, a very simple choice, that the idea of who you are, simply the idea of who you are, the idea of Frederick, the idea of Alice, the idea of Jane, the idea of Otto, is all being allowed to be re-known. And re-known means articulated, born anew, resurrected into its true nature. And that's Paul Selig channeling for his book, Alchemy. Refinement of identity, just refining our divine nature, who we truly are as spirit beings in this human form. And I'm just going to share screen with you for a moment. A little cartoon. Tuning up. And it says, so there is someone coming up to Guru Greg's soul repair. And Guru Greg is saying, I'll check out your chakras, top off your mindfulness levels, and fill up your serenity and inner peace. Nirvana should be ready for you in about an hour. So it's good to laugh at ourselves. Reunification, resurrection, re-identification. So there we are. So if we are a piece of the divine, we reclaim ourselves in our true nature. We have the opportunity from that upper room to make new choices as we align with the energies of growth and renewal of Beltane. Take a good look at yourself. Who is that man in the mirror, as Michael Jackson would say in his song, who is emerging into life once again? And the quote from the song, I'm starting with the man in the mirror, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a good look at yourself and make a change. We can choose to incorporate one or two changes that would have ourselves feel more at home and comfortable with our expression of who we are out in the world. And I'm a member of Weight Watchers, not that I always follow everything very well. And we're often reminded that you want to incorporate only one or two small, kind of doable changes that would support you in becoming the new you. Like, well, I will have a full glass of water with my dinner so that I feel fuller. I will substitute applesauce for ice cream. And it's not about scolding yourself or putting yourself down for things you did yesterday or in the past. We don't look into the rear view mirror for direction as we chart a new course for ourselves. Been there, done that. Don't need to dwell on past lessons. It only brings us down and keeps us stuck. Have you noticed that our trees every spring, starting with buds, and there is a protective covering, their rebirth I'm talking about. There's a protective covering that protects the new leaves underneath from freezing. And that protective covering falls away. And as the air warms up, it's no longer needed. We like to watch all those little red buds falling like snowflakes when the leaves are popping out on a warm day. And what if with spring, just like the trees, you rebirth a new you? And the items that held you in place in the past will fall away as you let them go. no longer needed. For some of us, the rejuvenating energies has us getting rid of items and clothing we have no more use for. And as the new me emerges, there's kind of a lightening up feeling and kind of that empowerment of, gosh, what else can I let go of? Now that I tackled my sock drawer, I feel so much lighter. What else might we let fall away? And what are some qualities we may like to let fall away? Judgment, pessimism, worry, blaming others, gossip. And then we can choose to be in the newness of those emerging new qualities. What qualities of the new qualities would you choose to add in to the new you? Generosity, maybe, kindness, confidence, being more solution oriented when there's a problem. So in conclusion, by harnessing the energies of new growth all around us, standing in our place of power in the upper room, if you will, what choices will the new you, the reconnected you, make to make your world a better place? Imagine your first steps as you begin again. And we did some imagining and stories guided meditation. So let that imagining continue with first steps as you imagine yourself making the changes in and becoming the new you. Thank you.